When Katie Couric sat down with legendary journalist Tina Brown, nobody expected the conversation to deliver one of the most devastating takedowns of Meghan Markle we have seen in months. But that is exactly what happened, and the internet has not stopped talking about it since. Tina Brown is not just any commentator. This is a woman who has edited some of the most prestigious publications in the world: Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, Tatler. She now writes a newsletter called Fresh Hell, and honestly, that title could not be more appropriate for what she just unleashed on the Sussexes. When someone with her credentials speaks, people listen, and what she had to say about Harry and Meghan left viewers absolutely stunned. But here is what makes this interview even more explosive. It was not just Tina Brown going in on the Duchess of Sussex. Katie Couric herself leaned into the criticism in a way that nobody saw coming. This is the same Katie Couric who appeared alongside Meghan at South by Southwest. The same Katie Couric who shared a stage with her at that high-profile women's panel alongside Brooke Shields. And now she was openly acknowledging what so many have been saying for years. When the topic of Meghan Markle came up, Katie did not hold back. She admitted she finds it fascinating how polarizing Meghan is. She acknowledged that people really defend her and like her. But then came the kicker. She pointed out the level of vitriol expressed against Meghan on social media, paused and added that most of it is justified. Most of it. Justified. Coming from someone who has sat beside Meghan at public events, those words carry enormous weight. Tina Brown agreed that Meghan has been excessively demonized at this point. But then she immediately followed that up with a brutal clarification. She said Meghan unfortunately makes a lot of mistakes. And Katie Couric's response to that statement was simply to nod and say yes, she does. No defense, no pushback, just quiet agreement from a woman who has seen the Duchess up close and personal. The conversation only got more damaging from there. Tina Brown pointed out that there is clearly an anger that Meghan came into the royal family and seemed to pull it apart. She acknowledged that Meghan has difficulty working with people. She noted how many staff members Meghan has gone through since arriving in Montecito, let alone during her time as a working royal. The revolving door of employees has become impossible to ignore. This was not some tabloid reporter making accusations. This was one of the most respected journalists in the world calmly laying out the pattern of behavior that has defined Meghan's public life. And she was doing it on a platform hosted by someone who was once considered an ally. But the real bombshell was still coming, because Tina Brown was about to reveal something Harry reportedly said about his own son that left everyone speechless. Before Tina Brown dropped her most explosive revelation, she turned her attention to the relationship that has captivated the world for years, the bond between Prince William and Prince Harry, and what she described was nothing short of heartbreaking. According to Tina Brown, the relationship between the brothers is very frosty. But to understand just how devastating that is, you have to understand what they once shared. Throughout their entire childhood, William and Harry had a bond that was forged in the most painful circumstances imaginable. They were the only two people in the world who truly understood what it was like to grow up inside what Tina Brown called the royal cage. They survived the Diana tragedy together. They endured the appalling aftermath together. They watched as every butler and servant who had ever worked for their family wrote tell-all books exposing their private pain. In that environment, trust became everything. William and Harry had something sacred between them, an unspoken agreement that no matter what happened, they could rely on each other. They were the only two people who truly understood their unique prison, and that understanding created a bond that was supposed to be unbreakable. Then Harry wrote Spare. Tina Brown did not mince words about how William received that memoir. She said that of all the people who could have betrayed William, of all the people who knew better than to write a book full of horribly painful revelations, it was his own brother who did it. The one person William thought he could trust completely turned around and exposed their most private moments to the entire world for profit. Tina Brown believes this shattered William on a personal level. She said it was a taboo that Harry broke, a line that should never have been crossed, and the damage it caused was not just to their relationship. It was to William himself. She described him as being personally devastated by the betrayal in a way that goes beyond typical sibling disagreements. Think about that for a moment. These two brothers survived losing their mother in the most public and traumatic way possible. They walked behind her coffin while the world watched. They built a bond based on the shared understanding that only they knew what that experience truly felt like. And then Harry took all of that pain, all of those private moments, all of those vulnerable conversations, and he sold them to the highest bidder. When Katie Couric pressed Tina Brown on whether the brothers might reconcile, the answer was not encouraging. She said William is very matter-of-fact about the situation. The implication was clear. William has made his assessment and he is not looking back. The trust that took a lifetime to build was destroyed in the pages of a memoir that made Harry millions but cost him his brother. And yet the most shocking revelation was still to come. Because Tina Brown was about to share something Harry said about his own child that would leave everyone questioning everything they thought they knew. What Tina Brown revealed next stopped the entire conversation in its tracks. It was a detail so unexpected, so strange, that even Katie Couric seemed momentarily lost for words. and it all centered on something Harry reportedly said about his own son Archie shortly after the baby was born. Tina Brown shared that she had lunch with the legendary primatologist Jane Goodall before Jane passed away. During that conversation, Jane revealed something extraordinary. She had been one of the only people outside the royal family who was invited to meet baby Archie after his birth. It was a rare honor that spoke to her close relationship with Harry and his passion for conservation work. But what Harry said during that visit left Jane absolutely stunned. According to Tina Brown, Harry looked at his newborn son and said, "This is my little African child." He reportedly went on to describe Archie as his wild child. The implication was clear. Harry had a vision for his future that looked nothing like the life he is living now. He imagined raising Archie off the grid. He pictured a life focused on conservation, on wildlife, on the African continent that had captured his heart during his gap year and countless visits since. This was not just some passing fantasy. Tina Brown revealed that the entire royal family expected Harry to eventually leave and pursue exactly this kind of life. Even the late Queen believed Harry would one day want out of the royal family, but everyone, including Her Majesty, assumed he would go to Africa. They pictured him living a quiet life dedicated to protecting animals and preserving the wilderness he loved so deeply. They imagined him raising his children close to nature, far away from the cameras and the chaos of celebrity culture. Nobody expected Montecito. Nobody expected the Netflix deals and the Spotify podcasts and the celebrity parties. Nobody expected Harry to trade one gilded cage for another. The royal family thought they were losing Harry to the African bush. Instead, they lost him to a mansion in California and a lifestyle that is the exact opposite of off the grid. Tina Brown said Jane Goodall was absolutely stunned when she saw where Harry ended up. The man who called his son his little African child chose to raise that child in one of the most exclusive and celebrity-obsessed zip codes in America. The prince who dreamed of conservation work spends his days attending polo matches and Hollywood parties. The contrast could not be more stark, and it raises an uncomfortable question that Tina Brown was not afraid to ask. What happened to that vision? What happened to the Harry who wanted to disappear into the wilderness with his family? What happened to the man who saw his son as a wild child destined for a life far removed from the spotlight? The answer, according to Tina Brown, comes down to one person, and her theory about Meghan's role in all of this was about to change everything. Tina Brown's next statement cut straight to the heart of the Harry and Meghan narrative, and it is a theory that will have supporters of the Duchess absolutely fuming. Because according to one of the most respected journalists in the world, Meghan Markle was simply Harry's vehicle for escape, nothing more, nothing less. When Katie Couric suggested that Meghan broke up the royal family, Tina Brown pushed back on that specific framing, but her alternative explanation was somehow even more damaging. She said she believes Harry was already looking for a way out. He wanted to leave the royal family regardless of who he married. Meghan did not create that desire. She simply provided the means to fulfill it. Katie Couric pressed her on this point. She asked directly whether Harry would have wanted to leave even if he had never met Meghan Markle. Tina Brown's answer was unequivocal. She believes he would have gone with whoever was there. Meghan was his vehicle. Those three words carry enormous weight. They reduce one of the most talked about love stories of the century to something purely transactional. Harry needed an exit strategy, and Meghan provided one. But here is where the theory takes a devastating turn. If Harry was always destined to leave, if he was always going to find someone to help him escape, then why did he choose the path he did? Remember what Jane Goodall revealed about Harry's vision for his son. The African child, the wild child, the off-the-grid life dedicated to conservation and nature. That was the escape Harry supposedly wanted. That was the life he dreamed about. Tina Brown said Jane Goodall was absolutely stunned by the choice Harry ultimately made. She could not believe the man who spoke so passionately about raising his son in Africa ended up in Montecito living the celebrity lifestyle, and Tina Brown offered a poignant explanation for how that happened. She suspects that if you asked Harry where he would rather be, he would probably say he would rather be living that quiet conservation life. Deep down, away from the cameras and the content deals and the constant drama, that might still be what he wants. But he fell in love with a woman who did not want that at all. Meghan had no interest in disappearing into the African wilderness. She had no desire to live off the grid away from the spotlight. She wanted the opposite. She wanted Hollywood. She wanted fame. She wanted influence. So Harry traded one dream for another. He gave up the vision of his African child running wild through the bush and replaced it with a mansion in California, a struggling jam business, and a Netflix deal that has failed to produce anything of substance. He was looking for an escape, and he found one, but it took him somewhere he never planned to go. And the evidence that Harry might be struggling with that choice was about to become painfully clear. Perhaps the most telling moment in this entire interview was not what Tina Brown said, it was how Katie Couric responded. Because watching one of America's most respected journalists slowly distance herself from Meghan Markle in real time told us everything we need to know about how the tide has turned. This is not some random commentator who has never met the Duchess. Katie Couric has been in the same room as Meghan. She has shared a stage with her. There are photographs of them together at South by Southwest, sitting side by side at that high-profile women's panel. Katie was part of that world. She was someone Meghan's team would have considered friendly territory, and now she was nodding along as Tina Brown laid out a devastating critique of everything Meghan has become. One small detail in the interview spoke volumes. Throughout the entire conversation, Katie Couric refused to call her simply Meghan. She kept using her full name, Meghan Markle, over and over again. It might seem like a minor thing, but in the world of celebrity and royalty, names carry weight. The Duchess has made it clear she prefers to be called Meghan. Her team pushes for that familiarity, but Katie was not playing along. She kept that distance, she kept that formality, and it felt deliberate. When Tina Brown pointed out that Meghan unfortunately makes a lot of mistakes, Katie did not jump in to defend her. She simply agreed. When Tina Brown noted that Meghan has difficulty working with people, Katie nodded along. When the conversation turned to how many staff members have cycled through Meghan's orbit since she arrived in Montecito, Katie did not offer any pushback. She let it sit there. She let the criticism breathe. This is significant because of what it represents. The walls are closing in on Meghan's carefully constructed image. The people who once stood beside her at events, who smiled for photographs, who gave her the benefit of the doubt, are now stepping back. They are watching the pattern of behavior that Tina Brown described, and they are quietly acknowledging what they see. Katie Couric is not a tabloid journalist. She is not a royal correspondent with an agenda. She is a mainstream American media figure who has spent decades building credibility, and she just signaled to her audience that the criticism of Meghan Markle is not some baseless smear campaign. She acknowledged that most of the vitriol is justified. Those words from someone in her position carry enormous weight. The interview made clear that Meghan is losing allies she cannot afford to lose. These are not anonymous Twitter accounts criticizing her. These are establishment figures, award-winning journalists, people with decades of credibility, and they are all arriving at the same conclusion. Something is deeply wrong with the Sussex operation. But the criticism of Meghan's character was about to get even more personal, because the situation with her father Thomas was about to expose a level of coldness that shocked even the most hardened royal watchers. If you want to understand why public opinion has turned so decisively against Meghan Markle, look no further than how she has treated her own father, because what happened in the last few weeks has exposed a level of coldness that is difficult to comprehend, and the details are absolutely damning. Thomas Markle is 81 years old. He has been estranged from his daughter for more than 7 years. In that time, he has suffered 2 strokes, he has had a heart attack, he survived an earthquake, and just recently he underwent emergency surgery for a blood clot that required the amputation of his leg. Doctors told his family the next 72 hours were critical. They were not sure he would survive. This was a life or death situation. So what did Meghan do when she learned her father was lying in a hospital bed facing the possibility of death? She sent a legal letter. According to reports, someone from the hospital barged into Thomas Markle's room and made him sign multiple documents just to receive this letter from his daughter. His newly amputated leg was exposed. He was weak and vulnerable, and the communication he received from his only daughter was not words of comfort. It was not an offer of reconciliation. It was not even a simple phone call to say she was thinking of him. The letter reportedly attacked him for giving media interviews years ago. That was it. That was her message to a dying man. You spoke to the press, so I will never forgive you. No acknowledgement of his suffering, no recognition that he might not survive. Just cold, calculated cruelty, dressed up in legal language. But here is what makes this even worse. We only know the contents of that letter because Meghan's own team leaked it to the press. Her spokesperson briefed journalists that Meghan would never reconcile with her father. They made sure the world knew that even with Thomas facing death, Meghan's position had not softened 1 inch. They wanted that story out there. Think about that for a moment. Meghan's team could have stayed silent. They could have let the situation play out privately. Instead, they actively briefed journalists that the letter was an attack on Thomas for his past media appearances. They wanted credit for reaching out while simultaneously making clear that no actual reconciliation was on the table. The cruelty is breathtaking. This is a man who raised Meghan, who paid for her education, who supported her dreams of becoming an actress. His crime was posing for some staged paparazzi photographs before her wedding and giving a handful of interviews in the aftermath of being cut off from his own daughter. For that, he has been sentenced to permanent exile from her life and the lives of his grandchildren. And the hypocrisy of Meghan's position was about to become even more glaring, because her justification for cutting off her father does not hold up to even the slightest scrutiny. Meghan Markle's entire justification for cutting off her father rests on one accusation. He spoke to the media. That is his unforgivable sin. That is the crime so severe that it warrants permanent estrangement, even as he lies in a hospital bed with an amputated leg. But take one look at Meghan's own behavior, and the hypocrisy becomes absolutely staggering. Let us count the ways Meghan and Harry have spoken to the media since condemning Thomas Markle for doing the same thing. There was the bombshell Oprah interview where they made explosive accusations against the royal family. There was the 6-part Netflix documentary where they opened up their private lives for millions of viewers. There was Harry's memoir Spare, which exposed intimate family secrets and sold millions of copies worldwide. There were the countless magazine interviews, the podcast deals, the carefully placed stories in friendly outlets. Meghan has built an entire post-royal career on speaking to the media. She has monetized her family drama to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, and yet her father giving a handful of interviews is somehow the unforgivable betrayal that justifies never speaking to him again. The double standard is breathtaking. In the Oprah interview alone, Meghan made claims about her father that damaged his reputation around the world. She discussed his behavior, his choices, his failings as a parent, all on global television. The Netflix documentary included even more details about their fractured relationship. Harry's book contained passages about Thomas Markle that were deeply unflattering. They have profited enormously from discussing her father in public while simultaneously punishing him for doing the same. And what exactly was Thomas Markle's crime? Before the royal wedding, he agreed to pose for some staged paparazzi photographs. That is it. That is the original sin that set this entire estrangement in motion. He was an elderly man who had never dealt with the media spotlight before, and he made a mistake. He has apologized for it repeatedly. He has expressed regret countless times, but Meghan has refused to forgive him. Meanwhile, she has given interview after interview trashing not just her father, but her half-sister Samantha and her half-brother Thomas Jr. She authorized a Netflix series that painted her entire family in the worst possible light. She has done exactly what she accuses Thomas of doing, except she has done it on a much larger scale and made much more money from it. The late Queen reportedly urged Meghan to get on a plane and visit her father. Just go see him, she advised. Draw a line under the situation. It was practical wisdom from someone who understood how these things play out in the public eye. But Meghan refused. She chose permanent estrangement over a simple act of reconciliation. And while Meghan remains locked in this bitter standoff with her own flesh and blood, disturbing new footage has emerged that suggests Harry might be struggling with the life he has chosen. While Meghan wages war against her dying father, new footage has emerged of Prince Harry that has royal watchers deeply concerned. And the timing could not be more telling. Just days before Christmas, a time Meghan has claimed is incredibly important for their family, Harry was spotted alone on the slopes of Aspen, Colorado, and according to multiple observers, he looked worse for wear. Harry was photographed with his close friend and polo partner Nacho Figueras, enjoying a boys' trip far away from his wife and children. Nothing wrong with a getaway with friends, of course, but it was Harry's appearance that raised eyebrows. Multiple commentators noted that he looked bleary-eyed and out of sorts. Some suggested he appeared to have been partying a little too hard. The contrast with the polished family man image Meghan tries to project could not have been more stark. But here is what really caught people's attention. Harry looked happy, genuinely visibly relaxed and happy in a way we rarely see when he is standing next to his wife. Body language experts and casual observers alike have pointed out the same thing. When Harry is with Nacho and his polo friends, there is a lightness to him, a playfulness. The old happy-go-lucky Harry seems to emerge. That version of him disappears when Meghan is around. Sources close to the polo circle have reportedly shared some revealing details about the dynamic. According to insiders, Harry's friends are thrilled when Meghan does not come along. One source allegedly described her as allergic to fun. Another claimed she has been a Debbie Downer when it comes to Harry's social life. Ever since he started dating Meghan, his friends have seen less and less of him, and when she is present, the relaxed atmosphere apparently evaporates. The Aspen trip was not the only recent sighting of a solo Harry. He attended the Kris Jenner birthday party alone as well, and once again observers noted he seemed somewhat out of it. The photographs from that event were hastily removed from social media, reportedly because Harry did not look particularly composed. Some claim the real reason for the deletion was that Harry appeared too cozy with the host, but the official explanation focused on privacy concerns. There is a painful irony in all of this. Harry left the royal family claiming he wanted privacy and a quieter life. He said he wanted to protect his mental health. He spoke about breaking the cycle of pain, and yet here he is looking exhausted and strained, escaping to the mountains without his family while his wife posts two-word Instagram stories, trying to convince the world everything is fine. Tina Brown's words echo loudly here. Harry fell in love with a woman who wanted the opposite of what he wanted, and the evidence of that mismatch is becoming harder and harder to ignore. But the professional struggles facing the Sussexes are just as troubling as the personal ones. Remember when Harry and Meghan left the royal family with promises of building a global empire? Remember the $100 million Netflix deal and the Spotify partnership that was supposed to revolutionize podcasting? Remember all the announcements and press releases about the incredible projects they were developing? Well, years later, the results are in, and they are absolutely dismal. Let us start with Meet Me at the Lake. This was supposed to be Meghan's big moment as a producer. The Sussexes acquired the rights to this best-selling novel about romance rekindled by a chance encounter. Netflix reportedly paid for the option. The project was announced with great fanfare. That was nearly 3 years ago. The film has not even entered production. Not a single frame has been shot. Meanwhile, the same author sold another book to Amazon, and that adaptation is already being promoted with trailers and a full cast. The Sussexes move at a snail's pace, while their competitors sprint ahead. Now comes the announcement of another project. The Wedding Date. Another novel, another romance rekindled by a chance encounter. The same basic premise as Meet Me at the Lake. Why are they buying the rights to essentially the same story when they have not managed to produce the first one? It makes absolutely no sense from a business perspective. All announcements, no execution. That has become the defining pattern of the Sussex brand. And then there is Meghan's cooking show. With Love, Meghan was supposed to showcase her lifestyle expertise and establish her as a domestic goddess for the modern age. Critics absolutely savaged it. The show failed to crack Netflix's top 10 in any category. By the streaming giant's own metrics, it was a flop. Netflix has canceled far more successful programs this year. Why they continue to entertain the Sussex partnership remains a mystery to industry observers. The answer, according to sources, might be Diana. Insiders suggest Harry and Meghan are dangling the possibility of a Diana documentary to keep Netflix interested. The streaming service knows that a tell-all project about Harry's mother would generate massive viewership. They also know that if the Sussex marriage ever collapses, Meghan's divorce story would be ratings gold, so they maintain the relationship, waiting for the real content they actually want. Meanwhile, Meghan's lifestyle brand American Riviera Orchard continues to struggle. The jam that launched with such fanfare has become a punchline. The website remains sparse. The product line remains limited. Rumors now swirl that the Sussexes are pursuing a partnership with the Kardashians to salvage the business. Imagine that. A British prince potentially appearing in promotions for Kim Kardashian's underwear brand. The fall from royal grace could not be more complete. Tina Brown put it perfectly. When you look at where Harry and Meghan were 6 years ago and where they are now, flogging jam on the internet, it represents an astonishing fall from grace. And her final verdict on the whole situation was utterly devastating. Tina Brown saved her most poignant observation for last, and it perfectly encapsulates the tragedy of what Harry and Meghan have become. Because beneath all the failed projects and the family drama and the endless controversies, there is a deeply human story of two people who wanted very different things from life. According to Tina Brown, Meghan has difficulty working with people. There is no doubt about it, she said. The evidence is right there in the endless parade of staff members who have come and gone since the Sussexes arrived in Montecito. Add that to the turnover during their time as working royals and you have a pattern that is impossible to ignore. People do not stick around. Relationships do not last. Something in the dynamic pushes everyone away eventually. But it was Tina Brown's final assessment of Harry that truly resonated. She suspects that if you asked him privately where he would rather be, he would probably choose that conservation life in Africa. The life he dreamed about when he called Archie his little African child. The life Jane Goodall fully expected him to pursue. Deep down, that might still be what he wants. But he fell in love with a woman who wanted something completely different. There is something deeply sad about that observation. Harry escaped the royal cage only to find himself in another prison of sorts. One built from Netflix contracts and Instagram posts and endless reputation management. He traded the constraints of palace life for the constraints of celebrity culture, and somewhere along the way, the dream of raising his wild child in the African bush disappeared entirely. The Sussexes had everything going for them when they left the royal family. They had global goodwill. They had a platform that most people could only dream about. They had the opportunity to genuinely make a difference on causes they claimed to care about, and they squandered it all. The tell-all interviews alienated their family. The constant complaining exhausted public sympathy. The failed business ventures made them look incompetent. The treatment of Thomas Markle made them look cruel. Katie Couric, sitting there nodding along as Tina Brown laid out this critique, tells you everything about where things stand. The establishment figures who once might have defended Meghan are stepping back. The narrative that she was a victim of racist media persecution is collapsing under the weight of her own behavior. The excuses have run out. And Harry is left on the slopes of Aspen, looking worse for wear, thousands of miles from his wife and children, possibly wondering how it all went so wrong. The African child he dreamed about is growing up in Montecito. The conservation work he wanted to dedicate his life to remains undone. The brother he betrayed will not take his calls. This is the legacy of Megxit, and judging by Tina Brown's devastating interview, the world has finally stopped making excuses for it. Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you will not believe what is coming next.